David, glad you could join us today for this.
It's nice to be here.
What a day. All right, I want to first off say I absolutely love the ticker PURR. It's incredible. I want to know when did that all come together? How did that come together? And how did you know it was the right fit?
Yeah, we were debating tickers and, HYPS, HYPE. We had a few somewhat boring, standard tickers. And I will take credit for this one. It dawned on me. I said, maybe we should do PURR. And I have to say, there were some people in our camp who absolutely loved the idea, and some people in the camp who thought didn't make any sense. Literally yesterday, I was talking to a board member, no names, who told me he still doesn't get it. But I kind of made the call that I thought it was the right idea, and I think it really connects with the community, and I think it is a lot more unique, and it stands out way more than HYPS or HYPE or whatever, some next HYP something. So I think it worked out nicely.
Yeah, amazing. And as a cat owner of two, it really resonates.
Yeah, I'm a little ashamed to admit it. I own 3 cats. Right?
Hey, nice.
I have 3 cats and a dog in my house.
Awesome. When you explain Hyperliquid to institutional investors, what do you lead with, and what makes it click for them?
Yeah, the people joke that they have to sort of wind me up, and I tell the same story every time. But I think it's very hard to tell the Hyperliquid story in pieces, in parts. People ask me all the time, what's Hyperliquid, what's the story, why are you doing this? And I say, I'm happy to tell it to you, but I need 15 minutes. I can't do it in 3 minutes. And generally, I start with, there's this guy named Jeff Yan. He graduated Harvard, math guy, went to Hudson River Trading, and then I end with, those are all the good things. Now here's the problem. The problem is the token only does, the thing's not available in the United States, and the token up until very recently only traded on their exchange, and perps don't work well in the US, and we're at least solving some of those problems with what we did. So again, there's like 15 minutes in between that most people here probably know already. But that's really the story. And also, like, an important part of that 15 minutes is the bridge between a crypto exchange and a real world asset exchange. We just heard the discussion inside about HIP-3 and real world assets. And as I said in my panel earlier, like, crypto is super interesting and exciting, but the total market cap of all crypto combined is nowhere near like NVIDIA itself. So, for this to be real, for this to really change the world, it's got to go well beyond crypto.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been great to continue to see this thread around RWA and 24/7 markets too, right? Even the pre-IPO stuff is really driving home here over the days. So it's been great to see that. I guess any differentials that you guys have from your DAT versus others, or something that you guys like to focus on?
Yeah, look, first of all, there aren't so many DATs. There are a couple. We're obviously by far the biggest, by far. I was on a panel earlier today with one other DAT and 2 ETFs, and it was getting competitive, which was kind of fun. I held my tongue and didn't mention that, like, our market cap is more than like double everyone else's combined. So we're bigger than everyone. That gives us a lot of sort of market credibility. We've also went out of our way to make the team and the board very TradFi, very non-crypto. And we think when it comes to helping move to the next level, moving, as we talked about, the RWAs, the trillions of RWAs rather than the trillion or whatever it is of crypto, being seen as sort of that bridge, being seen as the very regulatorily, institutionally acceptable partner is really important. And that's why we have, we have sort of fought the urge of adding a bunch of crypto-only people to our board and crypto-only people on our management team. We think that TradFi connection is super important.
Yeah, okay, great.
The other thing I would say is we have nothing to announce yet, but we are definitely thinking big on how we can be a part of all this and beyond just being a DAT. And again, there's nothing to announce today. And as I said in my panel earlier, when we were trading at a 1.3x MNAV, like I would say this and you'd have to really believe me, right? You'd have to be, wow, that guy's really, he's got something there. We're trading modestly below MNAV, but below NAV right now. Like, you don't really have to believe me. You kind of think, maybe he's right, maybe that'll all work out. But if not, it's going to be okay. And that's kind of where we are right now. Hopefully it'll change soon.
Yeah, okay. Good to get a little information on that. So great. As far as some of these DATs that have had like complex kind of structures around them, so it's like strategy and whatnot, right? How do you reassure like PURR investors that like against risk and certain things? We're seeing some other kind of interesting concepts around like strategy and whatnot, right? And what they're doing.
Yeah, look, I would say a couple things. I think MicroStrategy, whatever it was, many years ago, solved a problem for people, which was it wasn't so simple how to buy Bitcoin, and you got to worry about custody and Mt. Gox and all these other things. So buying MicroStrategy stocks solved a lot of problems. That problem is not really a thing in Bitcoin world anymore, right? Like buying it through Coinbase is pretty easy. A year ago, that was still a big problem with Hyperliquid. 6 months ago, it was still a problem with Hyperliquid. Today, it's less of a problem with Hyperliquid. So I think we definitely have to resist the urge of trying to come up with more and more sort of exciting things on the right side of the balance sheet to convince people this is the right thing to do. And, MicroStrategy I think Saylor both does more and more, aggressive things on the right side of the balance sheet. And I think his shtick, I've heard him talk many times over the years, he has to outdo himself every time he gets on stage, right? He has to say something this time that's more exciting than the last time, than the time before that, et cetera, to keep it going. And I think we're very, very aware of that and very sensitive to that. And we don't want to fall in either one of those traps, the sort of right side of the balance sheet trap or the having to be more provocative every time trap. And so, as I say, we're working on things effectively on the left side of the balance sheet. And I think we'll be successful with some big things. We've also not gotten all that excited about, the next HYPE deployer. I personally think, I strongly think it would be better to have more than one dominant HYPE deployer. I'd be thrilled if we found another one that we thought was the next great one that we could stake. We haven't yet. We're looking, but we wouldn't want to do that with someone unless we thought they were going to be the next Trade XYZ or of that level.
Yeah, got it. And in that kind of same thread there, like that kind of obviously opening up new markets for, with HYPE. What kind of markets do you see being traded perhaps in a few years from now? Like right now we're seeing a lot of these 24/7 markets, pre-IPOs, but there are other things that you can see coming on board with the HYPE.
Yeah, look, on the HYPE side, there's at least two major sides to that, right? There's additional markets that don't exist today, whether it's interest rates or FX, pick your favorite that aren't there yet. Would be nice to see. The second side of that, and this has come up a lot during this conference, especially when Jake was up there talking, is this still is not available in the US, right? There still is not a KYC'd option of this that would change everything. And, I say this a lot, but, if you're 0.72, if you're a millennium and you want to figure out how to trade on Hyperliquid, you'll figure it out. They have resources. They have, if you're a $3 billion AUM hedge fund based in New York, that would kind of like to trade oil or NVIDIA 24/7, but it's not like keeping you up at night. You're not going to go figure that out without a simple KYC option that's going to feel good to your prime broker. So that's the second angle that I think has to still develop. And then thirdly, HYPE outcome markets they're not even permissionless in, right? Like they're still pre-November 2025 for HYPE. And I'm pretty excited about that. I think that there's a lot of room. It doesn't make any sense to me that Kalshi is as big as it is with the kind of fee level they charge and the sort of trading experience they charge versus what Hyperliquid, I think, will be able to offer in that area.
Awesome. With some of these like other milestones you see, like we talked about, US access and whatnot, any other milestones for Hyperliquid that you see can really unlock it and make it...
I mean, look, we've kind of hit them, I think. I think KYC is the obvious one. When anyone in the US could just open up an account or whatever, like, you know, a wallet, whatever you want to call it. That's really big. And it's hard to ignore that as a potential major milestone. I think a lesser but super important one, as I just said a minute ago, is HIP-4 going permissionless. I think it is actually in some ways more complicated than HIP-3 because you have to, you know, when you have this resolution, it has to resolve and there can't be any disagreement. Like did Donald Trump win the 2020 election? That might be a complicated one to resolve. So, you know, I think that working out how exactly that works and making sure it is not 99%, but 100% is something that has to be resolved.
Yeah, that's a really great point because we've seen some of these other prediction markets or outcome markets where there has been some complicated stuff going on there. So that's a really good point. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate this conversation.
Thanks for having me. It's good.
Hyperliquid.
Thank you. Well, we got a crew together.